Recording in progress. Y'all can hear me okay, by the way?
Mm-hmm.
Good volume and stuff, right? Okay. So let me share. Share sound, optimize for video clip. Let's see. Fingers crossed this works on the first try. You know how it goes. All right. You can see my screen, right?
Yep.
Okay. And just to double check, can't see if, can you hear? Oh, hang on. Can you hear this? You hear that?
No.
Ah, because I have to turn on original sound. I knew it. There's always something. There's always something. All right, hang on. Can I... How do I... Remind me again, how do I minimize y'all, but I could... So I could see my screen, but I can kind of see y'all as well? And
Yeah, you have to go up. Do you have a view of... you have a different menu because you're screen sharing. And I can't see the screen sharing menu unless I take over the screen. So I don't want to tell you where, but somewhere on that menu, there's like a more button. And one of the options should be view video images or something like that.
optimize screen for video clip. It's odd because normally I can see y'all while I'm sharing my screen as well.
You just flipped to mono, by the way. You're on one speaker.
You know. Well, no, that shouldn't be, right?
No, it shouldn't.
Well, no,
be.
I mean that's a good thing, right? It was not an issue the other day.
No, it's in one ear. It's not that.
It's in one ear. So why don't you get out of screen sharing altogether and start again? Okay, so now up at the top of the screen, you have original sound on or off? Up at the top
Original
right.
sound is on.
Okay, so when you go to share, you did optimize for video sharing, and you also did a share sound with stereo high fidelity, right?
Yes, optimize for video clip and share sound. Oh, hang on. I need to switch that to stereo high fidelity. That was the one. Okay.
Okay. Now reshare and see what happens.
Right.
Now if you're still looking to see us, now
okay. I can just put you in the corner there. That's not too bad.
Okay. I'm gonna.
All right. Okay, so once again, double checking. Oh, I need to turn on original sound again. Turn off original sound. It should be on. You're hearing that, right?
Yep.
That sounded good.
I can hear that. You're very quiet though, Khalid. The music sounded good, but you're very quiet.
Testing. How about now?
That's bad. I think you're just facing away from the mic.
Ah, okay. Good now?
Yeah, it's still in mono, but I don't know how much a problem that is. I'm only getting it out one ear. I'm only getting it in one ear on my left side.
I think, unfortunately, that happens for some reason with my screen share.
No, that's fine. It's not a problem.
But the music is coming through
the
both
music's
speakers,
fine.
right?
The music's crystal
all right. Well,
clear,
then yeah, let's leave
that's
it like
the most
that.
important thing. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Cool. Okay, guys. So, thanks for coming. We are talking about some orchestral composing, how to come up with an idea and everything. What I've done here, this track here is something that is actually something David asked me to write. So if you don't like it, it's his fault. But the what it is a part of his album. David, I can't keep up with the different names, so I'm sorry if I have the wrong names here. But basically, he sent me this track, which I think is supposed to be the first one on your album, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, so the first track on his album, which is called The Day the World Stopped. And what he did is he asked me to write this piece as a sort of like a way to tie off the end of the album, so a little reprise, right? And it to kind of go back to to take the first track and kind of just tie it back all in. So the parameters were interesting. It's the first time I've ever done anything like this, and it was a nice challenge. I definitely took it on. I said, yeah, sure, cool. And he gave me full leeway lots of leeway as to whatever I wanted to do with it, except for basically one or two details that he had in mind, which was actually really helpful. That made things a lot easier. So to start off with, let us just hear a little bit of what his track sounded like.
I can remember from the panic in the skies to the whites of their eyes. Is it all going down this time? Do you remember all the things people said? Could this be the day when everything comes to a halt? It was the day it all stopped. The day the world stopped.
Okay, so that should give you an idea of a couple of things. One, the basic feel, the rhythm of it. It has a strong triplet feel to me. That was actually one thing that kind of threw me off when you sent it to me, David, because I think the track that you sent to me, you had it as 3/4, but I think it's actually 4/4 by 4/4 triplets. So my track, when I was setting up mine, it's important when you do these things, anytime you're dealing with MIDI and you're dealing with these orchestral samples and stuff, you have to get the project settings right, meaning the tempo and the timing signature right. The reason for that has to do with a lot of these libraries. They have a little delay in where I'm not sure why it happens, but a lot of them, where the MIDI note may be perfectly quantized, but the actual sample, the audio doesn't come in until like a split second later. Yeah. So what you have to do is you have to make sure everything can be quantized properly to your project, and then just grab everything and just nudge it a little bit left or wherever as you need, right? So anyway, that was just a by the way thing. So my project is set 4/4, and I got roughly the same tempo as his, more or less, right? So that's his song, and the one thing he asked, or the one thing he provided, is this little ostinato here that he asked if I could incorporate in some way. Okay, so that was the one little idea that he had, and he asked if I could use that. So that is what I call, or what we call, an ostinato, which is a rhythmic, recurring sort of phrase, right? So that right there is what has set the rhythm for the track. And like I said, it's a strong triplet feel. So 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 triplet 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 trip, right? That's what I got out of that immediately. So I said, okay, cool. So now what I'll do is I will play. That's muted. I will play my track. This is the whole thing, and you can hear the elements of his parameters, as well as I took it in a very larger direction, because he'd had no problem with me going as epic as possible, and I like to do big and epic. So here it goes.
That sounds awesome.
Before I dive in, any comments, concerns or initial reactions?
I was hoping for something understated.
It's big. It sounds very cinematic. I mean, I can't actually see how that's going to fit in with David's stuff, but I guess it'd be interesting to see how that works. But it sounds great. I mean, it sounds really good. Very big.
Well, actually, I was playing about it this afternoon because it's album's probably gonna end proper with our bandball track that I kind of hijacked. We wrote lyrics that sort of fit with that opening one.
Mm.
There was an idea we had for Babel that didn't quite work. We had the chorus sort of vocal playing in isolation at the end of the track, which didn't fit the end. When I stick it on the start of that thing at the very quiet bit, and it goes into that and then segues into the bandball track, it sounds really good actually. So I'll share that in the not too distant future to give you a better idea.
Cool. Well, whether you actually use it or whatever it is, doesn't matter. However you want to use it, that's fine. But either way, it's a good demonstration for how we take a little tiny idea and we make it into this big idea, right? So, couple of things, and I'm just referring to my list here as well. Okay, so we're talking ostinato and motifs. Ostinato is, as I said, that rhythmic thing that David provided, right? And here we hang on, sorry. Right. So this here is the ostinato here is mostly being covered by these two parts. That's what it sounds like. Okay? And that's basically what David provided, but what I've done is I've separated it into two slightly different ideas which complement one another. So, and this mostly has to do with how a bass would play versus, I'm using violas here as well. So the basses are playing pizzicato, which are plucks, right? And the violas are staccato, so regular bowing, but just short bowing, right? So with the bass, it's just gonna be plucks like this, and that's literally all they're playing for the entire time. And things that are that low down in the frequency spectrum, those big heavy instruments, they're not good at doing fast-paced, high detail things. So you can't overload them with too complex of an ostinato, right? Or too fast of passages, because they don't move that fast like that. Violas, however, are very mid-range and can handle something a lot faster. So that's why the violas are doing something a little bit more complex to add to that. So this is what this sounds like it. And combined with the basses. All right, cool. So that's the ostinato that happens pretty much throughout the entire piece, and that is basically providing the rhythmic foundation for the track and giving you a very strong triplet feel. Motif, on the other hand, is a little melodic phrase that you can repeat if you want, but it basically is also a foundational little melodic line which helps define what the piece is going to be about. So once again, and I had a lot of back and forth discussions with David as to how closely he wanted me to stick to this. And initially I tried following his melody completely, but then I didn't find it worked out very well. So instead I opted to just zero in on a little motif to imply, imply a connection to his track, right? So the part that I chose is literally the first part here.
I can remember.
So da 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 da, right? I think that's it. Da 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 da. Yeah, right. and here you'll hear it as well. So anytime you see these little groups here, this is the part here that I'm using. Sorry, see, this is why it doesn't line up properly. Right? So, and then even here I'm using a little part of his melody as well. Right? So that motif is providing a huge foundation for the track. The rest of all of this epic stuff going on here is fine. That's to help build it out and make it into something else. But I keep coming back to that motif because that is what links it to David's track, right? Without that, this is a completely different piece, right? So, let me see here. Right. Yeah, it starts here with the piano doing something just very quiet and ethereal over this violin tremolo, and then we go and just it continues and continues. It just repeats throughout, right? By the way, stop me anytime you want to. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep talking. Okay, so next point to talk about is the pads and drones. Pads are very, very important for this sort of thing because a lot of these samples, especially when you're using something like some shorts, pizzicato, staccato, anything like that, it's going to just sound very empty, very dead. And you need something sustained underneath to help provide that warmth, that glue, right, throughout. So there are many different ways in which you can have some sort of pad or drone that does just that, right? So here's an example. In the first case, this is a violin tremolo. So it's long, but it's sort of they're going back and forth on the bow very, very quickly, and just creating this tremolo effect. This is what it sounds like, right? Okay, the point of that is to start creating some atmosphere and start creating a little tension, a little mystery, perhaps, you know. So as it's paired with the piano, you start, you know, some different elements come out. Right? So because without the tremolo and you just hear the piano alone, it'll sound very dry. Right? So the tremolo, it's almost inaudible. I mean, it's very, very, very low in the mix, and the dynamics are way, way, way down. But you're always thinking about glue, you know, atmosphere, high end, low end material, different parts of the spectrum. You have to be thinking about these things at all times. Okay. So that is the first type of, we could call it a pad or a drone, or so. It's not really in this case, but it's doing the work of a pad. The other pad, kind of pad that I have, is this one, which is an unusual thing. This is from a Heaviosity library called Ascend, which is a piano synthesizer, and it has some really cool tones in there. And one of these things is, it's a piano, but it's a bow, so I guess electronic bow that they put on the strings themselves to simulate sounding like kind of like a cello or something like that. But you get all these weird metallic things going on. At least maybe in this particular version or patch of the synthesizer, I should say. There's some more jangly things going on. Listen to what it sounds like. right? So you get all this high frequency material that creates tension, right? So that's and it also has some mid range in there as well. So it does still give you that kind of foundation, right? So and the main thing you'll notice here that is that I'm switching over from the tremolo here to that ebow because I don't need the piano the violin tremolo to go the entire length. That's just it's unnecessary. It's too much. It's unrealistic, right? So there is working out how this one transitions into that is a little bit, and you can even see the way that I have the dynamics here. So these lines, these vertical lines are MIDI programming. This is dynamics information, right? And I don't know if you can see it. Let me see. If I go here, okay, so down at the very, very bottom, I know it'll be, I'm not sure it's on the screen or not for you, but can you see those orange lines down at the bottom there? They're like way at the bottom with some numbers. No? Yes?
Yeah, they're there.
Yeah,
Okay,
you
cool.
said- yeah.
Right, so that is dynamics programming, and that's something that I have to do with a mod wheel on my keyboard. I don't have to do it, but it just works a lot better. And in this particular case, the dynamics on this sample is the maximum it is at 5 or 6. No, I'm seeing a 9. That's like super, super, super low, right? Compared to most people when they use sample libraries and they frankly just they're not familiar with what to do. They'll usually have the dynamics like all the way up because they want to hear it, right? So that's just a good example already as to how little you want sometimes, right? Okay, so that is pads and drones. We talked about that. Next thing is any questions so far, by the way? Cool, good.
One
Articulation.
quick comment, Khalid. Can you turn your dot into full screen? Just to make it a little bit bigger for us on what you're sharing?
If I do, I think I'm not going to see y'all, but let's see. Yeah, if I do that, then I can't see y'all.
Oh, that makes it easier for us to see what you did.
Crap. Let me see if there's a way to do that. Okay. All right. No problem. Anyway.
Khalid, there is a way to get a floating window. Again, it's on the, I think it's under More for the options that you're seeing.
Uh-huh.
Just quickly browse them and look for something that says view something. Again, I can't see. I can't see it because you're sharing. The only menu only comes up when you're sharing.
I know. I am looking at that menu right now. Oh, it hide floating meeting controls? No.
That's it. It should be the opposite of that. It should no, not floating meeting controls. It's I'd have to stop you from sharing to tell you exactly what it is.
I'm looking at record, disable and disable annotation for others, hide names of annotators, hide floating meeting control. What is happening here? Control share computer sound, optimize screen share for video clips, and turn off original sound. So that's all I have.
That's it. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well.
All right. No worries. No problemo. Okay. So, well, I can't see y'all, right? So just let me know if you want me to stop, and I'll listen out for y'all. Okay. So we're talking about articulations now. So we have a bunch of different articulations here, and one of the things you definitely want to do when you're doing any kind of composing is you want to use as many different articulations as is reasonable, right? Legato is definitely the main go-to for strings and stuff. Usually when we want to add strings to something, it's typically legato that we're looking for. However, in a piece like this that is purely instrumental, we have to do whatever we can to break things up, create different rhythmic elements, different sounds, different tones and stuff, right? So it does take a little while getting accustomed to what different articulations should sound like, right? But so far, we have. So obviously everybody knows what legato sounds like, right? As I said, this is staccato, Easy enough. They're just shorts, right? These, once again, a pizzicato. So it's where they pluck. So it's a lot softer, more gentle, more delicate than staccato. Staccato, you do want to use staccato if you want more high frequency definition to come out. But if you want something more gentle, pizzicato is definitely the way to go. One of my favorite is this one. This is called Bartok pizzicato, and it's something. The only sample I have for this is actually from Spitfire Labs, and I had to re-download it just for this because I don't know what happened to it before. But this one is an interesting one where I think basically what they're doing is they're slapping the strings with the bow, and you get a very unusual sound. Listen to this. Right? So you do get some harmonic material, but more importantly, you get this high pitched slap. Slap. Very it's almost metallic or something, but it's an awesome tone for adding definition, adding kind of like tension, because it almost sounds like a clock ticking, right? I've only used it like once or twice in previous things, but it works really well here. Right? As far as articulations go, I think that's as many as I have in this piece. Other things, I'm trying to think. Some brass things, the brass articulations that are out there. All these different things like I forget the names of it, the forte, piano, and all kinds of. They're all in whatever language that is, Italian or whatever. If you have a library that can do some of them, then great. If not, it's not a big deal. But point is, you should always try to mix things up as much as possible, right? And while I have it here, I'll just demonstrate how it sounds when the Bartok kick in. I'm not going to do that because I'll have to play the whole thing again. So let's not waste time on that. You'll hear it in a little while again. Okay. So that's articulation. Layering is the next thing.
Khalid, before you move on, is that something that you have to select in the sample as opposed to a parameter that you can change?
What are we talking about?
So when you pick the staccato versus the pizzicato versus legato, that's in the sample that you're choosing as opposed to a parameter that you can change on the fly?
It's in the library itself. So if I go here to contact, okay, so this is nucleus, which is the core, which makes up the core of my orchestra. And as you can see here, so these are cellos, however you want to say. This is the cello sample or library, and these are all the articulations. So right now legato is selected here, but you can change it to sustained, spiccato, pizzicato, or tremolo, right? And then and they also have them as keys, not key switches. What do you call these things again? The CCs or I forget. I'm out of practice. I'm sorry, but yeah, you can program your keyboard actually to these MIDI controls to switch them here without having to go into the into Contact as well. And most sample libraries will have similar controls like this, as well as you'll see dynamics and expression, and well, this one has vibrato, never really controlled that much. This one also has reverb. Also, I just leave that alone because this is just the kind of like the natural reverb of the sample, which sounds good. It's not too much, it's not too little. So the expression I usually leave alone for the most part. The dynamics is the one that you do a lot of programming on. Does that answer your question?
So why have you got,
for the most
why have
part.
you, sorry.
I
Why
guess
is
the only
dynamics
question I
on
had
the
was,
default side?
you seem to have, like, you've got the violin in three separate tracks there up at the top.
Yes.
And so is each one of those is a different kind of aspect of picking a different expression? Is that basically what each of those is?
A different articulation. Yeah.
Okay,
So
yeah.
yeah. That's actually just
Rather than automating the articulation and changing it as you went through the track or something.
correct. So you can there. All right. So I'll show you that. So that's what these are. These are called key switches, I should say.
Okay.
So if you wanted to, this library offers the opportunity to switch articulations within the same MIDI region, right?
Okay. Hmm.
And so these switches, I think no, these are not CC switches, but these are actually key switches. So what you would do is if you put a little MIDI note on C -1 on the keyboard, which is basically way down on the left, so it's outside of the range of where anything would play, right? They exist way down there. So you could just basically put little MIDI notes way down there. So you could put it on a C -1, C sharp -1, D -1, and basically you could have all your MIDI on top, all of your notes, and anytime the play head goes across one of those key switches, it'll switch the articulation.
Okay.
Okay.
Hmm.
So it's not really automation. It's because automation obviously implies something to
It's
do
a
with
MIDI switch as opposed to a level
it's a
change. Yeah.
correct.
Mhm.
It's a MIDI switch, right?
Okay.
So the reason now, if you have if you have a very dense mix, something that is very tasking on your CPU, and you're kind of struggling for CPU bandwidth, whatever you want to call it, key switches are an awesome way of reducing your workload because you have fewer instances of the VST running and that kind of thing, right? The trade-off for it is now you may have different regions where if you have very wildly different dynamics and playing styles, from a mixing point of view, it now becomes difficult because so this tremolo, even though this tremolo here and this staccato are part of the same, exactly the same violin sample, because they're so different in level and in playing and everything, from a mixing perspective, this would be very difficult to mix these two things if they want the same track. Does that make sense?
Yeah, understood. Yep.
Okay, cool. So, but I have used key switches sometimes when it's convenient. You can use them. There are other libraries that don't offer key switches, but this one does. Yes.
Yeah.
So
Some people actually use them for live performance as well, don't they? Actually playing it on the keyboard or key switch and go to something else mid-track while they're doing it, which would blow my head, I must admit.
some people you can program key switches and people play it on the fly and stuff. I'm not that. My brain is still on Pentium 2, so I can't do all of that crap. So I can barely play and use the mod wheel at the same time. So most of the time I write whatever I need to write, and then afterwards I will hit record over it again and just use the mod wheel over that, because that just I can focus on that one thing a lot better. Cool. Any other questions before I move on? Good. Okay, taking silence as a affirmative. Okay, so talking about layering now. This is interesting. Okay, so how to get different instruments to complement one another. So here we have most of like when you have several tracks doing some sort of longs or sustains or legato or whatever, you need to find a way to harmonize them properly, right? So and figuring out which tracks work well with one another takes a little doing. That's when you get away from the composing aspect and now you're onto orchestration. So it does take a little while to figure out how, which tracks work together, which sort of instruments work together, and what is the best thing for each track, each instrument to play, I should say. So a simple one here is we have this low brass. This is an ensemble patch that has it would have like French horns, maybe like some sort of like tuba type things, maybe some trombones in there, some bass trombones or something. I love this patch. It has a very it can be very, very brassy when it's ready. That's what it sounds like. Right, so that is like the sound of anything epic, right? That almost foghorn type, just belt out sort of I could think of things out of Lord of the Rings and stuff, where what was it, the Battle of Helm's Deep or something, where, and it's that's what it was. Anytime you saw those the big Urukai army coming down, that da 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 da. This is the kind of sample that you would use for something like that, right? So that then goes into a line of purely French horns, which immediately starts harmonizing with it and moving the melody around it a little bit more. So whereas once again, because this is a very low frequency sample, the writing for it is very basic. Whereas the French horns by themselves can move a little faster. So this is why we can have some shorter notes in there as well. So let's hear what that sounds like when they both jump in together. Okay, so a little harmonizing going on, a little additional elements to that melody going on from the French horns. Okay. Let's see what else we have. So from there, we also have the introduction of, sorry, but I can't see, my camera is taking up half the screen. Okay, that and this. So we have some violas and some cello also harmonizing. Okay, so definitely getting more complex there. And basically, I never ever set out to write a particular chord, but obviously as these things are playing, they're making different chords because they're all harmonizing and moving through different layers of intervals and stuff. So it kind of it's never or hardly ever definite triad or anything like that I'm sitting down and writing. It's more, I'll write one and then I'll write another one and see, okay, does that sound better? Is that forming the kind of interval that I'm looking for? And I'll just usually move it around and stuff. The level of music theory in here is, of me sitting down and say, oh yes, I'm going to write a minor second. No, zero, none of that. It's all about just what sounds good at this point in time, right? The next part here, so we're still talking about layering these sustains. So what is this one? Okay, and then we have another set of horns. I think, if I'm not mistaken, these horns are there's another set of French horns which are doing a similar thing as the violas and cello. Let's hear that. Okay, so this is a good example of using the same sample but much, much slower, much softer dynamics. So listen to just how different these two horn samples are. This one is much higher in dynamics because you want that brassy bite coming out of it, whereas this one is soft, mellow because I just wanted to help create foundation, help create body to the arrangement. Right? So, because those are the things that are basically making the main chords. No idea what the chords are, doesn't matter. All right, and just to demonstrate again, this is what the same French horns could sound like when you pump up the dynamics a lot more. Cool, you get the idea, hopefully. All right, moving right along. Good there so far?
Can I ask you another quick question? Are you
Absolutely.
programming the attack and the delay in those, or is that just basically built into the sample? So that if you hold the note, it's going to swell up and swell down on its own?
No, that is those swells you're hearing. That is me programming
Okay.
that thing with the mod wheel. So this is what it looks like. This is the thing that takes the most time to learn and understand about writing orchestral stuff for virtual instruments, because this is the make or break thing for sample libraries to sound realistic. And anybody who remembers Matt Ebenezer from VIP, between Matt and Katie, they spent hours, in Matt's case, probably days or months or whatever, getting me to understand how to do this stuff. And I would be more than happy if I can pass on this knowledge to anybody else. The funny thing is, every time I think I'm fairly okay at it now, but even when up to today I send anything to Katie, she listens to it and immediately starts picking it apart and be like, oh well, okay, well, you could have done this, you could have programmed this a little bit better and stuff. I was like, ah, crap, I thought so. Okay, so it's always good to be humbled. Anyway, so this here down here is the mod wheel data. This is me physically hitting record and physically moving the mod wheel up and down to create these swells, to create these dips and stuff, right? And you don't have to use a mod wheel. You can actually just draw this with a mouse, or draw just, points and stuff as you would with any automation. It works exactly the same. But this stuff is basically attached to the MIDI. And I think yeah, it's attached to the MIDI. It's programmed into the MIDI here now. So even if I were to send this track, if I would send this MIDI file to somebody else, they could put it into their sample library, and it should react the same. Obviously, their library might have different tolerances or so, but the point is the dynamics information is all there. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I'm glad I asked.
Yeah, for sure. So this is a painstaking process because, okay, fine, yeah, you could sit down and write all of this, and it may take a day, may take a week, or whatever it is, but the fine touch to really make this sound like a real orchestra is here, and very often I will write the dynamics. I'll listen back to it. I'm like, nope, that's not quite right, because basically the little things like, do you want? I can show you right now. Okay, so look at this one. So you can see these. You can see the gray lines here, right? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Right. So in this one, in this particular note, this is this swells up. So this one, you want the note to start off gently and kind of come back up. But in this one here, it's the opposite. It starts high and then it comes back down. Because the way I wanted the low brass to come in, I wanted it to come in with a punch, and then it could get a chance to come down a little bit, and then you could see it races back up to the next note. Let's see if I could demonstrate what that sounds like. Right? So that's all the power right then and there. Whereas this one is going to be far more gentle. So there is a peak there, but you know, the playing starts off much softer in the beginning. Cool. Hopefully that answers that. And then okay, so even in this one, these are trombones, and this one is doing an interesting thing. So you can see the notes are long, but what you actually hear out of the note is just going to be this last piece, because this is a swell. So this is what this sounds like. Sounds like something out of Batman for some reason. Yeah. So, and together, let me put that back. Listen for the trombones. Right? So there's a similar thing going on here with the violins. The violins are also swelling a lot. Very dynamic violins. These are these. Cool. Okay, so that kind of more or less covered the dynamic. Oh, well, velocity is another thing we need to talk about, but that kind of covered most of what I wanted to say about dynamics. While we're on the topic, we could talk about velocity. So, based on the type of articulation you're using, you may, in one case it will be dynamics, and in the other case it will be velocity. So I'm not sure. I mean, I think hopefully everybody here should be more or less familiar with what velocity programming looks like, or what velocity in MIDI looks like. If I could, if it would, right, cool. So this here, this is a piano roll. This is what MIDI looks like, and these notes being green are at 80% velocity, or 80 units, whatever the units are. Obviously, the higher the velocity, what that means is that the harder the key is being struck, right? And in the case of shorts for strings or brass, anything that is going to be a short, there's not really dynamics. It's only going to be velocity. So in this case here, this motif, right? First thing you'll notice is these velocities are blue, which means they're much lower. They're down to 20. The reason for that is that when you are doing staccato, especially, violin players, a violin is a very delicate instrument. They don't dig in, they don't saw it in half with the bow. they play very, very gently. It's so you have to keep in mind that basically, as a rule of thumb, for strings, going over 50% is more or less unrealistic. Take that with a pinch of salt. But for the most part, it's unrealistic, right? That's 50% in dynamics and more or less 50% in velocity as well. So the higher the velocity for these samples, yes, it's going to sound louder. Yes, it's going to sound grittier and cut through your mix a lot more, but it's going to sound probably less realistic. So in this case here, I found the kind of sweet spot as to where basically I can hear it. It's cutting through the mix, so it's present enough. I'll retract that. It's not about cutting through the mix. It's present enough at this stage, and then afterwards, and like with it still being quiet enough to sound realistic, is what it sounds like. Oh, you know what? Hang on, that has a delay. Let me not use that one. Well, let me at least turn off the delay. Oh, come on, please, please, thank you. Okay, so just for demonstration, I'm gonna pump up the velocity, the 100. Okay, now obviously you can hear that much easier. Yes, it'll cut through the mix, it'll make it easier for you to mix and stuff, but no violin player is gonna be sawing into the violin like that. That's crazy. Right? Probably break
Yeah,
the
that
neck.
sounded more like a synth than a violin. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's the whole point, right? You don't want it to sound like a synthesizer, right? So once again, that's what it sounds like. So the trade-off of having lower dynamics, lower velocity, is that the samples are going to become very, very quiet. And for mixing, that's going to be a little tricky. It may appear to be tricky, because let's see what that says on the fader. So that's a level of -22, which is, quite quiet, right? Well, not really, because when you have, whatever, 30 tracks and everything, the gain is going to add up anyway. You're still going to have to pull things down, right? Let me just check something. Okay, so in this case, I did pump up the gain, but for the most part, most of the time, I'm actually reducing gain to try to get back headroom, right? So don't worry about not hearing the sample right away if you find it's, it sounds quiet and stuff at the moment. Keep mixing as a separate problem. For now, focus on the realism. Okay. There was something else. Okay, so talking again about articulations and layering things. So we have, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the shorts. So we have this one. Let's see how we build a layer of shorts. Or I should not build a layer, but layer a bunch of shorts to create something, right? So we have these two doing the ostinato, right? Then we also have, if I can find it, good. This one is a more offbeat. I don't think I played this one solo yet. So this one, these are some clarinets, and so this is 2 flutes and 2 clarinets. So this library has nice little ensembles, which are helpful sometimes. So this one is 2 clarinets at 1 octave, and then the 2 flutes would be layered on top at a higher octave. And this is what this sounds like. Sounds pretty weird on its own. Then we also add another layer. Where is that one? Oh, the trumpets, right. I believe those are playing the same interval. And then one more trumpet layer, which I think is... No, wait. One of them is playing an octave, one of them is playing... Okay, so this one is a harmony, and then this one is the high, I think the higher octave to that one. Okay, so while that is playing, we also have Bartok pizzicatos going on. As well as the ostinato. And the basses. So. And I will just put back in the motif so you could hear how that plays with it as well. Which one is this one? This, and I think is it this one? No, not that one. This one. Cool. So that right there, even without any percussion, is creating a ton of rhythm and a beat, right? But we have percussion as well, because we can. So let's talk about percussion. Any questions before I move into percussion? Okay. So first and foremost, let's talk about accents. This here is a Grand Casa, which is, if you ever want to get a percussion library, Damage 2 is the only one that I would suggest spending the insane amount of money that it costs. But it is 100% worth it, because if you have Damage 2, then you won't ever need to buy anything else again. I don't even care if there's a Damage 3 that ever comes out. This is all I ever need. So this here is a... What is it? I think this is a 70-inch Grand Casa or something. Source. Yes, 70-inch. So this thing is a massive 70-inch Grand Casa that they hung up in their studio, and they beat it as many times as was necessary. But what this does is, the way I used it here is not to go all out, like, you know, not to go full blast, but rather to hit it softly. So it gives more of like just a tiny accent and just a little bass, a little rumble. So you'll actually see the velocity on this is all the way down at 1. But I have it playing a couple times when certain things happen in the track. So at the beginning of the track, there's one there, just to kind of help say, hey, the track started. It's not the kind of thing that you want to hear on its own. You just want to hear what it does. It's, you know, like seasoning, right? So throughout here, there are just a couple of them. I'm not even going to necessarily... I'll just play the first one so you could hear how it comes in, but it's really meant to be more or less inaudible on its own. It's just the faintest of little booms, right? So that's one. Over here, there's another one when the other drone starts up and the ostinato starts up. It's a little heavier. Once again, I could barely hear it. I don't expect you to hear it, but I know it's there, and it just adds a little extra bass, that warmth and that foundation. Okay. There is then, so that's one kind of accent. Another accent is like this one. This is a cymbal swell, and this also ties into the whole concept of transitions. Whenever you have a transition happening, or a new part of the song happening, you want some kind of energy rush, and a cymbal swell does that very easily. There's nothing fancy about it, but the point of that is it helps just kind of rush that energy into the next section. And there are tons of ways you can do it in terms of the sample you want to use, the length that it is. So whether it's a 1 beat, 2 beat, 4 beats, 8 beats, you have all sorts of different things depending on what you want, right? But this swell just helps rush us into those horns coming in like this. Without it, it sounds very too just, like a wall. Just a wall hit you without any preparation. It's just not as interesting, at least in my opinion, as this. Not to mention, it carries on a little bit, so it's still there. It feels like a wave, a huge energy wave just came, just washed over you, right? Another type of transition is something called a reverse, because they're swells, reverses, swooshes, moans, scratches, all sorts of weird things, and Damage has all of them. This one is called a reverse. So this is basically a sound sample of something that's been hit that has a long tail, and they flip the audio, so it's it's a reverse kind of audio waveform, right? But this one is going to be much sharper, and it there's no tail after that. So wherever it ends on wherever it ends on the beat. So it sounds like this. Okay, and the point of that is this, last bit of the piece, there's a little bit of a kind of like a crescendo, and that reverse just helps just rush it into that last feel. It's sort of like to help create a feeling of running towards the edge of a cliff and falling off, and it just goes quiet. That was the goal there. Okay, before I go into this, questions, pausing for questions. Cool, moving on. One of the best selling points of Damage 2 are loops. And I've talked about this tons of times, so I won't go into too much, but basically, this is what the loop sounds like. Now what I've done here is I've actually just isolated the loop for mixing purposes. So with these loops, you can have you'd have a low side of it, a mid-range side of it, and a high side of it. So for instance, if I were to play this, notice there's the low, mid, and high. So you get the sticks on the high side, the kind of big massive drums on the bottom, and some sort of tom or something in the middle. Similarly like this. And you'll notice each one of these things lights up whenever I place it. Okay, so basically, and you could turn on, you could turn off. So if you wanted, you could move these keys as well to make up your own loop and whatever. But for this one, just for mixing purposes, I wanted to separate the low side of the loop first. So instead of having to go and individually write in each MIDI note, the loop helps a lot. It does the same. It's basically doing the same thing. It's just reducing the workload for you, which is always a big plus. So that's the low side of the loop. Then the mid side of the loop sounds like this. And together. Oh, sorry, hang on. You hear how it sounds when they both come in. Cool. Now I opted to remove the high aspect of loops because normally I would have like some sticks or some metal or something high frequency, because basically anytime you're dealing with percussion, you have to treat percussion as its own side of its own orchestra, really. And there's all sorts of different aspects, once again, low, mid, and high frequency aspects to percussion. In this particular case, I opted to get rid of the sticks and the metal and stuff because I felt the Bartok pizzicato was enough. It gave me enough of that rhythmic element that I wanted, that high frequency side that I needed. So didn't need any additional sticks or anything, right? So let's see, that is percussion. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is, I think we've gone through every aspect of the track. I'm going to play it through one more time now that you've gotten a full layout of everything. So hopefully you could appreciate it a little bit more. Then we'll see if there's anyone has any questions. We do have a little bit of time to talk about mixing if you want, but let's just play it through and take it from there. Okay. Question so far?
Overall, it's pretty mind-blowing, really, for me. I mean, on two levels. I mean, I could never imagine getting to that level of sort of detail, how it all progresses and fits together and working out how to do it. But also from getting from that kind of basic rhythmic idea and a half of the bar of a melody to that. That's what kind of blows me a fair bit. I think it takes some time to get to that.
Thanks, appreciate that.
How long did it take you, Khalid, to do it all? Do you know? Don't say 10 minutes.
Probably less than a week. David, how long did from the time that you sent me the first message to the time that I sent the first draft, how long was that?
That's that long, maybe about a couple of weeks, maybe at most.
Yeah, I think I put together the bulk of it in about a week. I would have done it a lot faster, but because I know I'm writing for somebody else, I did it slower and more incrementally so that, I wrote a little draft and I sent it to him to say, hey, am I on the right path here or what? But I mean, this was definitely the whole thing. If I was moving at regular pace, I would have definitely done everything in less than a week, inclusive of the mix and everything as well.
So the first draft, I was sitting on a balcony in Austria looking over the mountains, so it worked really well with that view.
Yeah. So, yeah, some things happen. Some things, they go faster. Some things go slower. I've had ideas that, I've had like sitting around for 6 months or so, just no idea where to go with it. It's no different from any of y'all with your songwriting as well. Some things just click, and I always say the most unusual thing is that the best ideas occur to me usually when like on a morning when I'm in the shower, of all things, because I don't know if it's maybe the sound of something else, of the water or whatever it is, drowning out the ambience or whatever. For some reason it just ideas occur to me, and I have to usually like whistle it a couple times and then grab my phone and whistle it into my voice notes onto my phone very quickly, because by the time I head back downstairs and open up the door and stuff and I see an email or something on TRJ catches my attention, the idea is gone forever. So I have, last time I checked, I probably have like about 60 different voice notes on my phone of things that I have yet to do, So tell me, somebody sounded like I can't see y'all, but somebody sounded like they were about to say something. Guess not. Okay, so quick notes on mixing. How do you go about mixing these things? Well, straight away, you should notice that my plugin chain is way more sparse or scarce than you would for anything, regular conventional rock music or whatever kind of music. You'll also notice that there are almost no compressors on this stuff, because compressors, for the most part, are the biggest enemy for this kind of thing, because after you spend all that time, programming all these delicate dynamics and everything, the last thing you want is a compressor to go and squash everything down, right? That makes no sense. So EQ for sure is the like 90% or more, 95% of what we're doing when you do this stuff. And I work fastest with Pro Q, because I can have Pro Q is so good at showing where, those masking bands and stuff where you have build up and that kind of thing. So, FabFilter's Pro Q3 is definitely my go-to for this kind of thing. Trying to think, when is it? No, anyway, it doesn't matter. So, because for certain things, you'd have side chains and stuff. The things that I do have compressors on. So the first compressor is the mix bus compressor. I just have this gain on so that y'all can hear it a little bit better. But basically this mix bus compressor is this one in Logic is the cleanest one. It's just a default digital compressor. There's no kind of coloration here whatsoever. You don't want any kind of coloration. You don't want any kind of saturation or artificial fuzz on this kind of stuff, right? And I can show you more or less what the kind of compression is that we're dealing with at this point. Yeah, so basically less than 5 dB, right? You like 2 to 3 dB on the mix bus compressor. The first stage after you do all your static mixing and everything, right? These gain plugins, for anybody doesn't know my workflow, I put the gain plugins on the top here to help with my gain staging. So I put gain plugins, and then I would basically go into my automation, and why is it not coming up? Why is it not showing? Anyway, whatever, doesn't matter. And then just automate the gain, and that's how I do my gain staging. So for certain things, let's look at these. This is an interesting one. Okay. So the bass pizzicato. So this one is the main bass element in the song, in the piece, right? Okay. So you'll notice here that I have a good bit of high pass. Well, not a good bit, but I have some high passing going on. Anything below 41 hertz, you can't hear it anyway, but it exists, and this stuff will build up. These basses, these double basses, are very, very resonant and boomy, right? And all of that is going to be costing you. I mean, you know, we were talking about it on TRJ just today or last night or whenever, but this kind of thing is the kind of stuff that you want to be chopping out from the get-go, because it doesn't help the mix, it just creates issues, right? So you want to start scooping this stuff out from the get-go. Also basses, I have some low passing going on a good bit as well, because I don't need definition. This is to create the warmth, right? I didn't really need to do much scooping. One of the nice things about using these samples, especially when you have good samples, is you don't really need to do very much EQ notching. As some samples, especially that BBC, the free BBC library, that one definitely needs EQ notching because it has all sorts of honks and whistles. Anytime you're using older samples or cheaper, for lack of a better word, samples, they always, the quality is not great, so you have to scoop out a lot of ugly frequencies, right? But for that, you know, it's most of these things, most of these EQ curves you're gonna see is basically high passing, low passing. In this particular case, okay, I wanted a little bump up here. I could tell you straight away for these, this is the cello, more high passing because you don't need all of that. And here is where I would have found some resonance, some low mid resonance, some low mid resonance. Okay, and it's just going around scooping. Very few things you'll find boosts. So for the violas, this one, anytime violas are tricky. There's a good one to talk about. Violas can sound nasty when they're ready. And you'll see here that this is one of the few ones where I have a proper scoop here because they sound very scratchy. Violas, the songs are very, very scratchy and very edgy. Solo that. Where's that? Oh, it's up here. Okay, so to the untrained ear, don't feel bad if you can't hear that. But basically, there is right around here, with the EQ off, you will hear it getting a little bit piercing, a little whistly, or so a little scratchy. And like I know this sample, I'm familiar with it, so I knew where to go looking for that. Especially what this sample is doing, which is helping create more a blanket of warmth. I don't need that scratchy, edgy definition. I actually want the opposite of that. I want silky smooth sound. So that's where I scooped it out, and there's a little. I think I probably put this little bump here just to maybe just make it a little clearer, right? And then obviously a lot of high passing as well, because you don't need all of this stuff. You actually need to cut out all of this stuff so you can make room for all those other things which need that space, like the bass pizzicato and the low brass and that sort of thing, right? The brass as well, these low brass as well here. These are the massive ones. So this one I did some more EQ scooping and notching. So this is what notching would look like for other samples. I'm wondering what I think. Okay. So the reason I did this is these I could tell you right away. This is me trying to unmask certain things, and I'm pretty sure if yeah. So it was masking with the horns. Let's see. Not quite sure why it's not showing up right now, but I have those notches where it was showing up before. So yeah. Okay. So everything here, all the EQ moves are very simple. It's nothing. You see, all these curves are dead simple. It's nothing serious, and practically everything is a scoop. There are almost no boosts anywhere, because the point is you have it's a whole orchestra. Everything is trying to be heard. All you're trying to do is find a sweet spot for each instrument to exist where it's not bouncing into other things, right? So and scooping is way better, as I'm sure you know already. As for ambience, there's not much to talk about either. This first reverb here, which is on bus 1, is just a regular. It's a concert hall, and it's a dotted half note. Right. So for this, the reason that this is the only case here. These regions in early on is the only place I could say where I went for a little bit more of a larger effect, maybe less realistic or whatever, but it was just to help kind of tie in a little bit with that very ethereal sound of the piano before. So this is a lot of reverb, way more than is on anywhere else of in the track. Okay, you could hear that big tail, as well as there's a delay on this as well, and it is a quarter note, is a stereo delay, quarter note, and a quarter triplet. You can hear what that sounds like. Sorry. And like I said, that because the song has a very strong triplet feel anyway, this triplet delay blends right in with it as well, while still giving you that extra ambience as well. So together. Cool. So you'll see anywhere there's bus 1, those bus 1 reverbs are these things that are doing the shorts. The other parts, sorry, I'm almost done, whoever yawned. Okay, so the last kind of reverb is this one, which is another concert hall, same kind of half. This is that correct one? Did I literally just put the same thing twice? Okay, might have just made a fool of myself. But it might be it's probably no. I can't see a possible reason why I did this. Okay, fair enough. So, but anyway, this one is this bus 3 is on the longer sustained legato stuff, and the point that is literally just for glue. That's to create a little bit more ambience and just to glue things together. It's a very little amount. The send is very, very little. Apparently it's the same. I use the same thing. I clearly had no reason to use it twice. Maybe I have a different EQ curve on it. Let me see. I'm looking for a reason. Let's see. Okay, well, there's a slightly different EQ curve on them, but not massively different. 330. Yeah, okay. I think I could have probably used the same reverb send on both of these and just adjusted the amount of send, but no problem. That's how it goes. Probably just, somewhere in the workflow. Forgot what I was doing. Okay, so that is everything that I have to say about this. If there's, are there any questions on this? I can't tell if you're shaking your heads, but I can't see you. So,
No, I think this was great. I know who to call on if I need any consulting on my orchestrations.
The thing is, does this go with the song, or is this completely just an instrumentation of or interpretation of the song?
Well,
I mean, sorry, what was the? I didn't quite get it. The brief at the start, because obviously it's a great orchestration of it. It's a very, to me, I couldn't tell. I wouldn't be able to tell a difference if that was a real orchestra or not. To be honest with you, it was that good. But was it to be as a backing track to David's song, or was it just a complete orchestration kind of example?
It's a little bit of link music, really, to bring a theme back from the start of the album. And it does close up with a slightly different track. So what I'll do next week, I was going to post a track anyway. I'll stick the relevant tracks around it so you can get a sense of what impact it will have on the whole thing.
Okay, so I thought it was like the orchestration backing.
Yeah, me too. So it's a standalone piece, is what you're saying.
Okay.
It is, but it links to other tracks.
Okay.
All right.
So
nice.
I was confused by that too.
What's an example of an album with that sort of reprise, David? Where can you think of one?
You'll probably get a lot on probably some of the Who stuff, like Topography, will have those kind of recurring themes that are based on a melody within a song about 2 or 3 times.
I think there's an EP out by this group called Crossing Waves that sort of does something like that. You can check that out on Bandcamp.
But even something like probably Desperado from the Eagles, really, you get that little, probably Hotel California, The Last Stand, you get a little bit of it coming back in before it comes back to the main song.
It's funny because I knew what you meant when you asked me for it in the first, from the get-go. I knew what you're trying to do, but I can't think, and I feel like I've heard it before. I can't think. Where I have heard it is in like musicals. So if you have a soundtrack for a musical, Phantom of the Opera or whatever it is, you would, in many of the tracks later on, you would definitely have that reprise, where it links back to something that happened before. I think that's where I think of it a little bit more.
Yeah, well, there's a classic UFO album which is about to be reissued, actually, called Obsession, which has the same thing going on. So there's a big ballad on the end of side 1 that reoccurs again on side 2. Always a good reason to go out and check out a UFO album.
I was sort of being facetious when I was talking about, the Rowan EP, but that's exactly what we've done. We've got a little orchestra in the beginning, which harkens back to the last song, which basically it takes from the overture, the melody line, and it also has its little motifs within some of the songs, the connecting material. So, it's a lot of fun to do that. I encourage everybody to give it a shot.
It is a cool thing, I think. It's a definitely good exercise when somebody provides some sort of motif or guitar riff or something I would say actually without chords, just a little melodic phrase, and throw that out and let everybody else, do something else with it, just to see how different it can be. I think that is a very good exercise in terms of showcasing creativity and different approaches. So, but yeah, I'm pretty sure if anybody else had taken that same set of parameters that David gave me and tried to write something, it would be a totally completely different thing.
Complete disaster.
Seen that
Yeah.
movie.
I confess, I've never heard it on a Motorhead album. I'll admit that.
No. I've got some orchestra stuff. As much as I like it, it's. I've got I don't know what I've got actually. I think I've got a cut down version. I think you recommended for me, Khalid, last couple of years ago, and I use that occasionally, but I don't have a mod wheel. That's what it is.
Yes, you do. It's on your keyboard.
No, I've got this crappy ass.
Yeah, it's got a mod wheel on it. I've got the same one.
Sample.
Now look at the bottom left, third middle button. It's a mod wheel.
Oh, is it really?
Yes, it's a button rather than a wheel.
Oh my god. What, this thing here?
Yeah.
You can make that into a mod wheel, can you?
Yeah, if you press it when you're playing note, it affects the sound.
Well, I'll be down.
Well, look how this call was in a complete waste.
No, it's good then.
Oh, this is great. This is.
I'll be
this
off
is-
writing some orchestration tomorrow then.
That's what I used to play the
I
keyboard
think I'll leave
solo
that,
on
I'll leave
Moonlight
that to
Camel.
experts. It's all this. It's great, but it's, to me, it's like, oh my god, it's like. Oof. I think as well, it's like, obviously I think it's like everything. The more you do it, the easier it becomes. I think, but it's quite a steep learning curve. And the problem I've got, I think, with yourself is that it's trying to, not go OTT where I've got to kind of hold myself back a little bit. It's like.
The thing is, so I don't expect anybody to all of a sudden say, "Oh, well, okay, I'm gonna, go into film composing and stuff now and stuff." No. The point of this is more in the way that it's applicable to everyone here is to think about when you are making an arrangement, you're making a composition, how to layer things or how to create interest using different articulations, even with a guitar. Whether you do a little tremolo or whatever, a little quick picking or long strums or whatever it is. I mean, there are lots and lots of different. Even a guitar is so versatile in how many different ways it can be played as well. And when you layer synths, synthesizers. Do you want them to just be a blanket of sound, or do you want them to have little things popping off here and there and stuff? There are all sorts of different things. So yes, this was specific. The demo here, yes, I use is of course a realistic orchestra, but it's more about the takeaway I would like is more about how adaptable this is, how you think about writing your own compositions now with regular mainstream music, because that's what separates, in my opinion, a home producer from these professional producers, these pro studios. They think about all sorts of different little things firing off at just here and there. It's just air candy. I will say it once, say it again. If there's anything that guy Phineas, Billie Eilish's brother, is a mad scientist for, is how many little different pieces of air candy he could jam into a track without it becoming overbearing, without being dense. But it's the orchestration, it's thinking about how many different layers I can have, and most of them are little specks, they're little tiny little regions all over the track. But when you see the project, when you see the size of the project, it's like 150 tracks.
Well, that's interesting. That's what I'm actually just working on a new song now, and it's I've started what I've started doing, and I'm actually finding it to be quite good. Is starting off with the sound and then just completely killing it, and then starting with another sound. So instead of what I'd normally do before was just let that continue and then add the other layer. What I'm actually doing is I'm taking one away and then replacing it with something else. And what you find is that you're still getting your candy, but you're not getting an additional layer on top. So there's no, and it's what maybe I'll turn the volume down a bit, but it's quite amazing. I think, as you say, I think it's the dynamics and riding the faders and turning things down and things up. I think that really, and obviously with orchestration, as you say, I think that's the way it makes it. The whole kind of movement, swelling up and down. That I think that's what really gives it the whole interest. I think volume is the really interesting thing, to make it really authentic. But yeah, definitely interesting.
Cool. Well, that's it for everything I have to say, guys. Anything else y'all want to talk about? Incidentally, we have Gordon and Isabel here, who looks like chocolates right now on my screen. But these are two from Jay's group. Well, I don't know if to say Jay's group.
Our group. There's
Oh,
nobody
yeah,
owns
yeah.
this group.
The other group, the Audio Outsiders, who have come across to TRJ. They're there somewhere every now and then. But yeah, glad to have everybody, in the same place, face to face, as much as we can.
Yeah, I'm happy to offer up this time slot. I'm sure that the group, well, this presumes that actually I'm the leader of the group, and I'm not. So if my colleagues on this call and who are not on the call agree, we'd be happy to offer up, I think, one of our community coffee Mondays for a deep dive with you guys on a regular basis.
Yeah,
On a day that, on a Monday that Nick.
It'd be good to get some other additional people on as well, but maybe
Sure.
it's a Monday. It's not the best. I mean,
Yeah, there's no day that's the best.
well, I don't. Maybe Monday's not the best. No,
Right.
I wouldn't say Monday's a good day, because I guess if you're still working, I don't know.
No day is
Well,
perfect.
we do it when Khalid is available.
Yeah, I
So
guess.
that's the best day.
Good point. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I just about finishing my first week of leave. I have 2 more weeks again to go, and then I have to go up to Sim in early November. So I'll see how the next one goes. I did want to offer for the next deep dive. Incidentally, I don't know if you want to continue recording this or whatever. Doesn't matter.
All right, I'll
But
stop.
okay. But yeah, I did